Hello everyone and welcome to the big clash of the Superbet Poland Blitz tournament. It is Magnus Carlsen versus Wei Yi. This is round 22 if you count the rapid section as well, but if you only count the Blitz section, this is actually round 17. And out of the two games they already played, their rapid game ended in a draw. Magnus was better. He was supposed to win that game, but Wei Yi played some incredible moves and he was able to draw. And in the Blitz section, Magnus has defeated Wei Yi. However, Wei Yi crushed everyone else, and he went into the last day as the leader of the Superbet Poland Blitz tournament, where it was very, very unlikely that anyone, even Magnus Carlsen, can catch up to him. And Magnus even said in an interview with Christian Cyrilla, they asked him after the second day, is it possible for him to catch up to Wei Yi? Maybe if he goes on a winning streak like he did last year, he won 9 games in a row. But Magnus said even if he wins 9 games in a row in the last day, it's going to be hard to beat Wei Yi because he's just playing incredible chess and he's beating everyone. So let's see what happened in this one, and then we're gonna discuss what happens in the standings. So Magnus with the white pieces opens with knight to f3. He opens with the Reti. D5 by Wei Yi, we have G3, the King's Indian attack, G6, bishop to G2, and bishop to G7. We have castles by Magnus, and now pawn to E5. Not an uncommon variation, but not that common in top-level chess. For example, Wesley So did use it to beat Fabiano Caruana in the Ultimate Blitz Challenge in 2016. So D3, preventing E4, we have knight to C6 and pawn to E4 now, inviting a trade in the center and an early queen trade, which Wei Yi goes for. D captures, and queen captures on D2. We have rook on D1. We have rook captures on D1, and just bishop to G4, nicely pinning the knight. We have C3, controlling the knight on C6, and knight to F6, putting pressure on E4. And Magnus now has to figure out how to keep his E-pawn safe while also nicely developing his pieces. So first H3, challenging the bishop. If Wei Yi captures, then the bishop will capture and also defend the pawn. Wei Yi goes back, and now knight to G5, defending the pawn with the bishop and knight, but also going after the bishop on E6. Bishop to D7, and now knight to D2, and just pawn to H6, kicking the knight back. We have knight G to F3, and there is a game where bishop to E6 was played, also pawn to A6 is a known move, but here we have castles queenside, and it is now as of move 13 that we have a completely new game. So Magnus has to decide how to develop while keeping the e-pawn safe. You could go for something like b4, just wait with the development of your pieces, but he goes rook back to e1. Now the pawn is defended and the knight can move. We have bishop back to e6 as the g-pawn, the g-square is now taken from the white knight, and bishop to f1. Knight to d7, also preparing pawn to f6 to keep the e-pawn safe, and now knight to b3. You could also launch with b4 right away, but Magnus goes knight to b3 first, and pawn to a5, preparing to kick away the knight with pawn to a4. We have bishop to e3, pawn to a4, and now knight back to d2, but okay, you have developed your bishop. We have bishop to f8, guarding that c5 square, so now you can play knight to c5 or bishop to c5, and Magnus just goes for pawn to b4, keeping the c5 square under control, and also if Wei Yi captures en passant, Magnus will get the open a file for his rook. And now there is no reason to give Magnus this open a file, but Wei Yi does it. A captures on b3, a captures, and now bishop to c5. Okay, you give up the a file, but you manage to develop your pieces. Bishop captures on c5, we have knight captures and b4. Chasing away the knight, we have knight to d7, and now knight to c4. Also an excellent square for Magnus's knight, attacking the e5 pawn. So pawn to f6, keeping the pawn safe, and now rook to a8 with check. We're already, Wei Yi has to make very important decision. Does he go knight b to b8, or knight c to b8, or knight d to b8? The problem with knight d to b8 is that you just kick away the knight from c6, and you have problems here. For example, knight to e7, and after knight to e3, going for that d5 square, you can play c4, knight to d5. It's very hard to get the pieces into the game. If you try something like king to d7 to get the king over to the king side, already rook to d1 ruins your plans. You're going to have to go back, because if you go to e8, you just trade, and then it's a free knight on b8. So that's why knight c to b8, and now rook e to e1. Magnus just doubles up on the a file. Knight to b6 kicks away the rook and also invites a capture on b6, and Magnus says, all right, I will double your pawns. Knight captures, pawn captures, and now knight to h4, putting pressure on the g6 pawn, trying to get the pawn to g5 to create some weaknesses, but Wei just goes back. Bishop to f7. We have knight to g2 and king to c7, unpinning, and now the knight can get back into the game. And here Magnus played knight to e3. He wants to get the knight to that d5 square, and the situation on the clock is 2 minutes for Magnus, 1 minute for Wei Yi. We have knight to c6, offering a trade of rooks, and Magnus could even trade rooks here. For example, he could capture and just play knight g4. It's going to put pressure on h6 and f6, and it's going to be very, very hard to defend those pawns. But instead, he just goes back, rook 8 to a3, and rook to d7. Now, Wei Yi just prepares to double up on the d file, bishop to c4, and now we have a trade. Bishop captures, knight captures, and pawn to b5. Knight back to e3, hoping to get the knight to d5, and the only way to defend is knight to e7. So, okay, how is Magnus to make progress here? Rook to a8. He offers a trade, but if Wei doesn't trade, then Magnus just has a very active rook on the 8th rank. So rook h to d8, and now knight to g4. Puts pressure on the h pawn and on the f pawn, and Wei just defends. Knight to g8. So, okay, knight defending, knight attacking 2 pawns, and knight defending 2 pawns. We have rook captures on the 8, and now, okay, you can't capture with the king because the rook a8 check picks up the knight, so rook captures on the 8, and now king to f1. We have pawn to h5, kicking away the knight yet again, knight to e3, and now just knight back to e7, protecting the d5 square. King to e2, Magnus improves the position of his king, and now Wei Yi could just play some moves like rook to d6, just wait and see what Magnus does, but he actually goes for pawn to f5. He starts pushing. And okay, pawn to f3, rook to a5 is also very nice, but both players are already getting very low on the clock. c4 will be a very nasty idea, but Magnus just defends, pawn to f3, and now pawn to h4. Wei Yi creates weaknesses on the king side, so he can start collecting with rook to h8. Magnus captures and rook to h8. We have e captures on f5, g captures on f5, and now rook to g1, going after rook to g7, king to d6, and now rook to g5. And here we have rook captures on h4. With king to e6, it's still very much a dead draw, but after rook captures on h4, there is a way for Magnus to keep pushing in this position. What would you play in this position? It's a very a tricky moment. But it seems like you should just play knight captures on f5 and be done with it. Like captures, you play rook captures and rook captures on h3, and okay, 3 pawns, rook endgame, this is a draw. But Magnus finds a way on how to continue, and he plays rook captures on f5. And okay, now obviously you cannot trade. If you trade, the knight captures with check, also picks up the rook on h4. So rook captures on h3, and now rook to f6 with check, king to c7, and rook to e6, putting pressure on the knight and the pawn, so knight to c6 defending, and finally Magnus wins the d5 square for his knight. That's what he got by playing rook captures on f5 instead of knight captures on f5. So knight to d5 check, king to d7, and now rook to g6. We have knight rook to h1, and now knight to f6 with check, king to e7, knight to e4, and now king to f7 attacking the rook. We have rook to f6 check, king to e7, and the Magnus repeats the position once. A rook to g6, we have king to f7, and now rook to d6. By far the strongest move, as now you are threatening rook to d7 check to start collecting, and rook to d5 check also to put pressure on that b5 pawn and then on the b7 pawn. And while the material is equal, the doubled b pawn makes it a problem for Wei Yi to defend with the black king already on f7, as the doubled pawns are easy target for the white rook. So rook to h2 with check, king to d3, and now rook to h1. We have rook to d7 check, and now there is nothing more for Wei Yi to do here, as he will start losing pawns. King to e6, and now rook captures on b7. We have king to f5. King to f5 runs into a very nasty fork, but even if you play something like rook to d1 check, let's say king e2 and rook to d5 to defend the pawn, it doesn't work due to rook b6. Attacks the knight. Now the rook cannot defend, and if the king defends, you run into another fork. And if you attack the white rook, the knight captures on d5, checks the king while defending the rook on b6. So we played king f5, but they were already incredibly low on time. Knight to g3 with check, and he was in this position on move 58 that Wei Yi resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. So Magnus almost defeated Wei Yi in the rapid, and he defeated him twice in the blitz section. And even though Wei Yi played the absolute best chess that you could possibly imagine, and Magnus even said it with an incredible performance by Wei Yi, it was an incredible performance. He had a performance that you win with every single time, but obviously not every single time, as look at this. Magnus got not nine straight wins in a row like he did last year. He actually got 10 straight wins in a row, and that was enough to overtake Wei Yi in the standings. So starting with game number 16, he defeated Gukesh, ending with game number 25, where he also defeated Gukesh, and in the final 2 rounds he got a draw against Anish and Arjun. And these are the final standings of the Superbet Poland Rapid and Blitz tournament. Magnus wins the tournament with half a point ahead of Wei Yi. Look at this, 26 to Wei Yi's 25.5, and then everyone else 19.5, 19, 18, 17.5. So it was truly a two-man show, and judging by the first day and by the second day, it was really a one-man show. Wei Yi was just dominating the field, but then Magnus, he just turned into a super Magnus and just obliterated everyone. So yeah, I mean, what are you gonna do? Wei Yi, I mean, he thrives in chaos. He crushes everyone. It was an incredible performance to watch. But against Magnus, as you've seen, he was unable to create any sort of chaos. Okay, maybe in that rapid game, but Wei Yi was lost, and then he was able to manage a draw. And in the blitz ratings for after this performance, sorry about the board. I see that the board is a bit not aligned properly, but Magnus is now on 2882, so he's almost 2900 rated in blitz, and he now overtakes Hikaru Nakamura, who is let me just check real quickly. I want to trick you guys. Yeah, Hikaru is now on 2874, and Magnus is now 2888. So there we have it. Everyone thought this was a one-man show. Everyone thought that Wei Yi was just going to take it all the way. And, I mean, he did, but Magnus, he just got 10 wins in a row. I mean, how does one do this? I have no idea, but Magnus did it. Maybe next year he can pull an 11 in a row. We'll see what happens. So yeah, that's the game. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We wasn't able to create any sort of tricky position here, and Magnus just easily crushed him. So we'll see. If you have any favorites, of course, use hashtag suggestion, and I will gladly go over them. But I also have two or three very beautiful games for you already prepared for what's coming up next. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Michael Hildebrand, Fred Ackerman, Chess Legend, Uncle at the Bar, and Fred at the Library for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.